Why didn't Jesus' disciples fast? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Luke on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Luke chapter 5. We're going to be reading from verses 33 to 39. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Luke chapter 5, beginning at verse 33. Then they said to him, "Why do the disciples of John fast often and make prayers, and likewise those of the Pharisees, but yours eat and drink?" And he said to them, "Can you make the friends of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them. Then they will fast in those days." Then he spoke a parable to them. "No one puts a piece of a new garment on an old one. Otherwise the new makes a tear, and also the piece that was taken out of the new does not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine will burst the wineskins and be spilled, and the wineskins will be ruined. But new wine must be put into new wineskins, and both are preserved. And no one, having drunk old wine, immediately desires new, for he says, 'The old is better.'" Coming down to verse 33, we come to the topic of fasting. Luke makes it ambiguous as to who asked the question, but from our study of Matthew 9:14 makes it clear that the disciples of John asked this question. Why Luke omits who asked the question is unimportant, for the significance of this story is not who asked the question, but the answer that Jesus gave to it. Fasting is, of course, the practice of not eating, but in a religious sense, it is not eating so that people can devote themselves to meditating on the Word of God and spiritual things, as well as prayer. So as the basis of this question, we have the disciples of John fasting and the Pharisees fasting, but the disciples of Jesus not fasting. Why the difference? Well, from chapter 3, we come to realize that John the Baptist is in prison, so this fact would help us understand a possible reason as to why John's disciples would be fasting, which is so that they could devote themselves to praying for John. On the other hand, from our study of Matthew, we know that the Pharisees often fasted so that they could be seen of men and get the praise of men for being so religious. So you have two groups of people who are fasting for two completely different reasons, and yet you have Jesus' disciples, disciples of the Master, not fasting at all. This confused John's disciples, which is why they asked the question. Instead of Jesus simply answering their question directly, Jesus uses 4 illustrations, one of which is only found in Luke, that help them best understand the answer. We do this all the time because we know that when we relate a difficult and possibly abstract concept to someone using examples that are relevant to them, then they will understand the answer better than if we simply gave them the answer. In Jesus' first example, he asked them, "Can friends of the bridegroom mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them?" Of course, the answer to that is no. A wedding is not a time of mourning, it is a time of celebration. However, when the bridegroom is taken away from them, then will be a time of mourning and the proper time to fast. Of course, Jesus is described numerous times in the Bible as being the bridegroom. And so he is saying that since he has not been taken away from his disciples yet, it wasn't the time for Jesus' disciples to fast. Now, Jesus could have left his explanation at that, but he went further by saying that nobody puts a piece of unshrunk cloth from a new garment on an old garment. For not only will the new cloth not match the old cloth, but the patch will pull away from the garment and tear, and the tear would be made worse. People who do their own laundry know this to be true. When you buy a new shirt, the fabric is tightly sewn together in the proper size. However, as you wear the shirt and wash the shirt multiple times, the fabric shrinks. Now say that you have a hole in a shirt and want to put a patch on it. If you use new fabric that hasn't shrunk yet to patch the old shirt, when the patch shirt is washed, the patch will shrink and will pull away from the shirt, making the hole bigger. Just as it is inappropriate for you to put new cloth on an old shirt, so too it was an inappropriate time for Jesus' disciples to fast. Jesus' third illustration involves wineskins. Under normal circumstances, over time, grape juice will ferment into alcoholic wine unless precautions are taken to prevent this. During the fermentation process, carbon dioxide is released. In order to accommodate the gas being produced, wineskins have to be able to expand during the process, or the container would break. New wineskins were thus more flexible and were fairly moist so that they can handle this expansion, while old wineskins would expand and then become dry, meaning that new wine would burst the skins when juice fermented. Jesus' point again, it was inappropriate to put new wine into old wineskins, so it was also inappropriate for Jesus' disciples to fast while Jesus was still with them. The final illustration, which is found only in Luke, says that no one, having drunk old wine, immediately desires new, for he says the old is better. Jesus is not talking about the appropriateness of social drinking here. He is merely using an example that people would understand. Old wine would be alcoholic, while new wine would not be. Nobody who wants to get drunk wants to drink unfermented wine, while nobody who is drunk wants to either, for they think the old is better. To the person who is drunk old wine, it is thus inappropriate for them to want to drink new wine instead. And this is really the lesson that Jesus is teaching here. Jesus wasn't saying that his disciples would never fast. He was saying that they would fast at the appropriate time. Today, it is not commanded that Christians fast in order to be righteous before God. However, from time to time, in order to focus on the spiritual, or in times of sorrow, it might be appropriate to fast and set our mind on things of God. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Luke chapter 6, verses 1 to 11, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.